You know, when this thing appeared on our roads, it wasn't really like a vehicle. It was more like an artifact from another timeline. A huge monolith of cold rolled stainless steel, all brutalist angles and just sharp defiance. This isn't just a truck, it's a statement, an icon, a machine that was literally engineered to grab your attention.
And right from the very beginning, from the moment it was unveiled, it just split people right down the middle. There's really no indifference here, no middle ground at all. The Cybertruck doesn't just ask for a reaction. Its very existence is, well, an act of provocation.
See, the whole point here was never just to make another electric truck. The ambition was to make the conventional truck totally obsolete, to build a machine straight out of science fiction, promising a whole new set of capabilities that weren't just meant to compete, but to completely redefine what a truck is.
So, what does happen when that futuristic vision slams head-on into reality? That's the big question we're going to dig into, because behind all the shock value, behind that steel curtain of its design, there's a much more complicated and honestly a much more revealing story. All right, let's start with part one, the promise of tomorrow. You have to understand, the whole legend of the Cybertruck, it wasn't built on steel. It was built on a set of specifications, of promises that were so audacious they were almost unbelievable.
I mean, just look at the stuff on paper. It was a complete revolution, right? You've got acceleration that could beat a supercar, an exoskeleton that's supposed to laugh at sledgehammers, power figures that absolutely dwarf other trucks, and then you have these advanced technologies like steer-by-wire and rear-wheel steering that promise this impossible agility. This was the vision that absolutely captured the world's imagination.
Okay, so that's the promise. Now for part two, the reality of the road. Because once the Cybertruck got off the stage and onto actual pavement, independent testing started to show a pretty big gap between that on-paper revolution and how it actually performed.
Okay, now take a look at this, because this is where the story starts to shift. The performance drop-off is pretty wild. Yeah, the top-of-the-line Cyberbeast is incredibly fast, hitting 60 in just 2.6 seconds. But the much more common all-wheel drive model, that takes 3.9 seconds. That's a full 1.3 seconds slower, which in the world of high-performance EVs is an eternity.
And then, of course, there's the big one, range. For that top-tier Cyberbeast, Tesla claims you can get 320 miles on the highway.
But when car and driver did their own independent test, a real-world highway test at a steady 75 miles an hour, the number they actually got was 250 miles.
And that right there shows you the disconnect perfectly. We're talking about a 70-mile gap. For an electric vehicle, that's not just a small difference. That's the difference between making it to your destination with confidence and having some serious range anxiety.
But, that crazy design, it comes with some serious trade-offs. That signature stainless steel is dent-resistant, sure, but it's definitely not stain-proof. It's a total magnet for fingerprints. Inside, that super minimalist cabin is dominated by the screen, which means no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. And that dramatic sloped roof, it really hurts your rear visibility, which is, a pretty basic part of driving every day. Which brings us to part three, the burden of ownership. We're moving beyond just performance numbers here, because for a lot of owners, the actual day-to-day experience has been complicated by a pattern of broken promises and some pretty significant quality control problems. Let's just take the so-called affordable Cybertruck. After years of hype, the single-motor rear-wheel drive model finally shows up in April 2025, and just 5 months later, it gets pulled from the market. The most accessible version of the Cybertruck was basically gone as soon as it arrived. And that's not the only promise that just disappeared. The in-bed range extender, the one that was supposed to boost the truck's range to over 450 miles, that's been officially canceled. Another key feature that a lot of early buyers were counting on, just gone. And then came the moment that really brought all the concerns about build quality and safety into sharp focus. And look, we're not talking about minor glitches here. One recall was for an accelerator pedal that could actually get stuck at full throttle. Another was for exterior trim pieces that could literally fly off the truck while you're driving. I mean, these are fundamental failures in safety and quality control.
Okay, so let's move into part four, a polarizing icon. Because to be fair, you can't just talk about the flaws. You also have to acknowledge where this thing is genuinely innovative. For all its issues, the Cybertruck is still an impressive piece of engineering, and you just can't deny its cultural impact.
I mean, even the biggest critics will tell you the acceleration is just insane.
And thanks to that advanced steering tech, it feels surprisingly agile. It really does drive smaller than it is. And for a lot of owners, being part of that exclusive, attention-grabbing Cybertruck club is a huge part of the appeal. And honestly, that gets to the heart of why people buy this thing. Driving a Cybertruck is a declaration. It's a cultural artifact just as much as it is a vehicle. And for a lot of buyers, that shock value is the entire point. The practical drawbacks, they just don't matter as much.
So that leads us to our final section, the final verdict. When you strip away all the hype, all the arguments, all the controversy, what are we really left with? What is this thing's true legacy going to be?
So, what do you think? Is this really a bold leap into the future of transportation? Maybe a flawed first step, but an important one? Or when you look at all the evidence, is it just a symbol of hype over substance? A massive steel monument to excess that just couldn't live up to its own revolutionary promises? Right now, its legacy is still very much in the balance.